In the early days of Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater, there were many more characters beyond the likes of Pasquale P. Pie Plate, Mr. Munch, and Charles Entertainment Cheese himself. Yes, there was a whole rotating cast of largely forgotten characters such as Krusty the Cat, Madam Oink, and most notably, what the fuck? Hello and welcome back to Sully Info Dumps about animatronics for way too long, and against my better judgment and cautions I've received from numerous lawyers, today I bring you the story of an animatronic that I cannot name. So let us move forward through this absolute minefield of a script and try not to get ourselves sued, shall we? At this point in the channel's history, I don't think I have to go back and spend a whole lot of time on Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater. I have discussed it in numerous videos before, but to summarize it in a single sentence, Pizza Time Theater was the 1977 precursor to what you may recognize as modern-day Chuck E. Cheese. If you need more information, feel free to go check out my concept unification video, but if we're on the same page, let's dive in. Now, in the earliest incarnations of Pizza Time Theater, you had a core set of characters that appeared in animatronic form. Chuck E. Cheese, Jasper T. Jowls, Pasquale P. Pie Plate, Krusty the Cat, and the Warblitz. Now, this initial lineup didn't last forever. For example, the Warblitz, a group of 3 singing crows, were featured less and less in show tapes over the years, being ultimately phased out by the late 1980s. They originally had larger roles in the show tapes during the portrait stage era of Pizza Time Theater, but they slowly became less and less used, being relegated to just singing background vocals until they were entirely replaced by, I kid you not, a bucket of singing mops and a pot of singing flowers. What a downgrade. Krusty the Cat was another original character that has been largely forgotten except by the hardcore Chuck E. Cheese fanatics. Krusty the Cat was the first feline character added to the Pizza Time players, and for legal reasons, he was the only one. Moving on! While Krusty the Cat debuted alongside all of the Pizza Time players back when the store opened in 1977, he only lasted a year before being retired in 1978 and being replaced with the monstrosity that is Mr. Munch. Fun fact, Mr. Munch was only created because the director of entertainment over at Pizza Time wanted a Cookie Monster-esque character for their pizza chain. But hey, Cookie Monster's blue, ours is purple, yours eats cookies, ours eats pizza. Don't sue us. Alongside your main players, Pizza Time Theater eventually started adding guest stars in a rotating basis in their restaurants. The very first guest character was Helen Henny, who looks a lot different than her later taxidermized version. You had Madam Oink, a French pig who, it was revealed in an early show tape, dated Pasquale P. Pie Plate, but was dumped because of her weight. So not only did the only canonically human character in the Pizza Time players date a pig, he's also just a scumbag. Now, while these guest stars originally had unique mechanisms to them, when the restaurants moved over to the cyberamic models of animatronics, all of these rotating guest stars would share the same mechanism. Speaking of cyberamics, this era brought forth an entire new generation of characters to the Pizza Time players, including a few new guest star retrofits, such as Sally Sachet, a disco-loving skunk who was almost immediately retired because disco died the moment she showed up, and Harmony Howlett, a country-loving coyote, which feels oddly redundant because we already have a country-loving dog in the Pizza Time players. Are we just running out of ideas already? But besides these rotating guest stars, there was an entirely new group of animatronics that were introduced during this time period. But before we get to that, I want to take a second to thank the sponsor of today's video, Fabletics. You know, my New Year's resolution was to get into a shape that isn't round, and I want to look cool doing it. Or I should say, at least as cool as I possibly can. In that case, I should probably go put on some Fabletics. Fabletics has some of the best looking and best feeling athletic wear and loungewear on the market, and all of it can be yours! When I was going through my haul this month, I was so thrilled to have both clothes that I could work out in on the off chance I decide to go touch grass, as well as new Hawaiian shirts to add to my ever-growing collection, rivaled only by Weird Al himself. I've been wearing this stuff constantly since I've gotten it, and I've gotten compliments from nearly everyone I've ran into, and that is not normal for me. Fabletics also has a fantastic VIP program that immediately gives you 70 to 80% off their entire site as an introductory offer upon signing up. But this offer is only available for a limited time using my link. More on that in a second. And as if that wasn't enough, you could be saving up to 50% off daily as a member, as well as receiving a monthly credit that is redeemable for any 2-piece outfit or any product up to $100. And best of all, you can skip any month and not pay a cent as long as you opt out between the 1st and 5th of the month. So take off that rhinestone jumpsuit and get yourself some Fabletics by going to fabletics.com/Sully or by clicking the link in the description below. Doing so helps support this channel and helps you look fashionable so you don't get stuck dressing up like an idiot on camera like some people. Again, that's fabletics.com/Sully. Consider becoming a VIP member today. Now, as I was saying, this era of Pizza Time Theater brought forth an entire new generation of animatronic characters. May I introduce you to the Pizza Time Theater Cabaret, an adults-only room of the pizzeria featuring more risque animatronics. Okay, so it was intended to be for adults, but they were having a hard time keeping kids out of a room at a kid's pizza joint, and so a newspaper article at the time states that a sign reading "especially for mom and dad" was never posted. Which, I'm sorry, a sign reading "especially for mom and dad" posted outside of a dimly lit room in a seedy pizza joint has oddly sexual undertones, but maybe I am reading way too much into this. There is no way they would actually sexualize an animatronic. In this small side room, parents could find the character Dolly Dimples, a voluptuous hippopotamus who had a very unique feature. And I genuinely don't think any of you would believe me if I just outright said it, so instead, I'm going to play a news clip from this era.
Dolly has a repertoire of more than 20 medleys, and a bosom that rises and falls with compressed air.
What? Why did they decide to give the animatronic jiggle physics? And another newspaper article at the time reads, Dolly's hair is a little too orange, the finger rings are a bit flashy, and the pink brocade dress she wears is a snug contradiction to the white ruffled collar. But when she winks those big blue eyes and offers in a throaty, sexy voice to let me entertain you, there is no resisting her. Why is everybody horny for the animatronics? Who wrote this? Mary Gottschalk. Mary, I say this with respect. Seek therapy. I feel like I could do a whole video talking about Dolly Dimples, but I think it would get age restricted. Eventually, like many other rotating characters in this era of Pizza Time Theater, Dolly Dimples was swapped out with other characters such as BB Bubbles, a pink circus elephant with largely the same features as Dolly, but without the jiggling breasts granted, and Artie Antler, a moose who to this day we still do not have any footage of. Hey, if you have footage, you know the drill. But where our story really takes place is across the hall in Pizza Time Theater's lounge. I know, we're like 7 minutes into the video and I'm only now getting to the thesis point. I'm sorry. Frankly, I'm hoping the lawyers have gotten bored and clicked off by now. Anyway, in the lounge room, you could find acts such as the Beagles, a group of musical dogs who sang songs by the Beatles. Get it? Because Beatles sounds like Beagles. And then once the Beatles royalties got way too expensive for the struggling pizza chain, they were retrofitted into the Beach Bowsers, who now instead sung the much cheaper Beach Boys songs. But looming over the lounge and looking down upon unsuspecting parents and children stood a 9-foot-tall animatronic behemoth, and his name was the— What's that? If I want this video to be monetized, I can't mention his name? His name's not important. This lion, dressed in a shiny, white, rhinestone-covered suit, rocked out on his guitar and played all of the greatest Elvis Presley hits. Man, I love Elvis Presley. He truly was of rock and roll. Are you kidding? I can't even say that? He had his own little stage off to the side of the room and even had a custom neon sign adorned with his name. It's a really cool sign. I wish you could see it. Now, much like seemingly all characters during this era of Pizza Time Theater, he who shall not be named was also retrofitted into a different character, and this one I can talk about. Introducing King Cat, a near clone of the previous animatronic, but this time, oops, all Michael Jackson. But sorry, they never changed the neon sign behind him, so I still have to blur it. I really like how the Showbiz Pizza wiki talks about this character, saying, Pizza Time Theater had high hopes that King Cat would be a success as the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. Pizza Time Theater went bankrupt and merged with Showbiz. Absolutely perfect. No notes. It has the same energy as the Wikipedia entry for the Pope Mobile, where it's like, in 2002, Pope John Paul II requested that the media stop referring to the car as the Pope Mobile, saying the term was undignified. In 2007, the Pope Mobile— sorry, back to animatronics. So King Cat and his counterpart actually had a much longer run in these restaurants than any other character did during this time period. He was originally introduced in 1981, and in some instances, stayed in restaurants until 1995, well past the bankruptcy and merger of Pizza Time Theater and Showbiz Pizza Place. So of all the somewhat obscure characters that we've talked about so far, this is the one that most people who visited the pizza chain during this time will remember. He was arguably one of the more iconic character amongst a sea of forgettable retrofits. But after 1995, the character faded into relative obscurity alongside all of his Pizza Time Theater counterparts. But that being said, there are still a few locations where you can see this cool cat perform to this day. Your first option is to visit the Volo Auto Museum in Volo, Illinois, something I did for this channel back in 2024, yet somehow never captured footage of this character. That's because, according to the Volo Instagram, at the time of my visit, these characters were being rebuilt and so were not on display. So now, of course, I'm stuck wondering if I make the 13-hour journey just to get footage of this character to put in the video. But at this point, I'm not even sure if I'd legally be allowed to use that footage in this video without the fear of a copyright strike, and I'll get to that in a minute. The second location you could find this character in is Timeline Arcade in York, Pennsylvania, and in this case, I did make the trip to go see him. And our fearless leader looks absolutely fantastic. Caleb over at Hound Dog Productions did a great job restoring him, so you can visit Timeline Arcade and see him playing all of the same show tunes he did back in the heydays of Pizza Time Theater. And for the most part, that's where I thought the story and legacy of this character came to an end. That was until November of 2023. As many of you remember, back in 2023, I acquired a giant crate of old Chuck E. Cheese animatronics and various parts that I unboxed on this channel for your viewing pleasure. Originally, I was only making this purchase to acquire the creative engineering animatronics, otherwise known as the Rock-afire explosion characters. But after I made the payment to the seller, he casually mentioned that he found a couple other things that he was gonna throw in for free. And honestly, for the amount of money I paid for that box of animatronics, I was willing to take any freebie I could get. But when that crate finally showed up to my house, I came to discover an animatronic that would soon find me at the receiving end of a cease and desist letter. How fun! He was not in good condition. He was missing a lot of parts. He had been sitting in a haunted house for God knows how many years. But I was at least able to clean him up a bit and make him a little more presentable. Truth be told, I didn't have much room for more animatronics at that point since I had just newly acquired a complete set of the Rock-afire explosion, and I was never that interested in the Cyberamic character. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I sold it on eBay. Guys, I cannot overstate how much money I spent on this crate of animatronics. I needed to do anything I could to not bankrupt myself. So bits and pieces of the crate ended up being sold on eBay, an animatronic here, a set of cosmetics there, and all was seemingly going well until one morning, I received a notification that my listing had been removed by eBay. And furthermore, I had received a direct message from another eBay user, and here's what it said. I have been advised to notify eBay of trademark infringement and provide registrant information. This is a direct notice. Entertainment Time Theater, LLC reserves all rights to the animatronic, i.e. robot, as of June 7th, 2016 and beyond. Its likeliness and unauthorized sales are prohibited. Oh no, Chuck E. Cheese Corporate found the channel. Shut it down. I genuinely thought that Charles Entertainment Cheese was on his way to personally sue me, but then I was looking back over the complaint, and since 2016, this character stopped appearing in restaurants in 1995. The math isn't mathing. And while I initially assumed that Entertainment Time Theater LLC was some sort of subsidiary of Pizza Time Theater or Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated, that turned out not to be the case. No, as it turns out, there's another animatronic collector out there, and he is a big fan of that character. So much so that he has 4 of them. Man, what kind of weirdo would collect so many animatronics? moving on. His versions of the characters have been featured on numerous places, such as the History Channel, in an episode where he readily admits Chuck E. Cheese corporate would not allow them to use the likeness of this character. Go figure. A Vice article where the author for some reason relates all of this back to Kanye West ranting in the Oval Office, and ABC Action News where you can find footage of these animatronics while the lower thirds of Immigration Crisis and ISIS hack fill the bottom of the screen. We are living in a simulation. And then all of these years later, I put up a listing for a character that he did not create from a pizzeria he does not own, and yet I'm threatened with legal action. Do you know who I am? All right, first of all, I'm kidding. I would never pull that card. And second of all, the answer is no, he did not in fact know who I was. Because months after the eBay debacle and shortly after the unboxing video went live, I received an email from him that had a noticeably different tone. Hi, Sully. So now that I know you're a YouTuber as well, it may have been more beneficial to explain who you were, and we could have worked together instead of the opposite, and it could have resulted in both a higher sale and a whole slew of my base. I don't play that way. If you don't respect me as a random eBay seller, then I do not wish to have your respect just because I have a modicum of internet clout. But nevertheless, the question remains, how on earth did he get the trademark to a character that he did not invent? So I've had trouble wrapping my head around this for years now, but what it comes down to is that the character was not trademarked by either Pizza Time Theater or Showbiz Pizza during its usage in its restaurants. And so, because the trademark for this character was essentially abandoned, this animatronic collector was able to swoop in and rebrand the character. Now, in my time speaking to him, in which he strongly suggested I do not make this video, he explained to me that he was able to make some modifications to the character and then trademark his iteration of this character. So I can show you footage of the character in Pizza Time Theater back in the heyday because he does not own that version of the character. I cannot, however, commercially use the name of the character in this video because according to his trademark, he now owns all streaming audio and visual content featuring an animatronic character with the trademarked name. Which feels crazy. I make tons of videos on this channel talking about ancient animatronic characters, and then suddenly there's one I'm not allowed to talk about just because some intern at a pizza chain forgot to trademark him back in 1981. Hey, it's Sully from the future interrupting. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more on what I personally believe his trademark covers in this case. When eBay initially took down my listing, they sent me an email that included what rules I was breaking with my listing and what I could potentially do in the future to avoid breaking those rules. In that first email, eBay said that we had to remove your listing because it didn't follow our brand name misuse policy. Your listing was reported by the rights owner because you have used the term. When listing this product, please do not use the term in your title, item specifics, images, and or description. eBay was essentially telling me, you can relist and sell this item, just don't use the character's name anywhere in your listing. And so I did relist the item on that same day, and guess what? The listing wasn't taken down. In our conversation, the trademark owner let slip that he attempted to get that listing removed as well, but eBay essentially told him to kick rocks because I wasn't breaking any of their rules. So that's by no means a legal ruling in my favor, but I think it does shine a bit of a light on what he may or may not own, and how he might be trying to sway public opinion to imply that he owns much more than the trademark actually covers. But I'm not stating any of that as fact. This is all just purely my speculation, but I think this information makes things a little easier to understand. All right, that's about it. Back to you, Sully. To be fair, it seems that nobody really knows specifically what his trademark covers in this case, and nobody is willing to test the waters and find out. So I think this video would serve as some sort of public service announcement to those who want to make content featuring this character. Technically, the only version of the character that he owns is the 2016 rebrand of the character. So generally, that would include his new voice and show tapes, as well as his new custom outfits that differ from the Pizza Time Theater ones. Although he will publicly state that you are not allowed to make money off of any version of this character, which I see as an attempt to eliminate any competition. So when a place like Timeline Arcade wants to display this animatronic character in their establishment, the only rights owners they theoretically have to run this by is the Big Cheese himself. I was talking to Brandon over at Timeline Arcade, and he said they actually contacted Chuck E. Cheese corporate to see if they were allowed to recreate that famous neon sign that donned his name. And corporate said, yeah, of course you can. Why would we have a problem with that? And thus they are legally able to run this character in their arcade, although I have heard it through the grapevine that the Trademark owner is not thrilled with this and has even gone so far as to block everyone involved with the character's restoration. Volo Auto Museum is a slightly different situation because they apparently have a licensing deal that allows them to show this animatronic in their collection. Now you might be saying, but Sully, the character in the collection is clearly the Pizza Time Theater version of the character, and I thought you said he only owned the trademark to the 2016 rebrand of God damn. You would be right. However, when the Volo Auto Museum began displaying these characters, the trademark owner over at Entertainment Time Theater approached them with a deal to license his own custom show tapes for the character rather than using the old Pizza Time Theater show tapes. And so that right there is where the licensing issue comes into play. I can happily show you a still image of this character on display in this sponsored and monetized video, but I do not have the license for the data and movements. Now, why have I been able to talk about King Cat without the fear of being sued? Like I mentioned, Pizza Time Theater did not trademark any of the characters back in this time period, and so nobody has made any moves to trademark the King Cat character. Now, since King Cat is essentially the same animatronic character but with a few different cosmetics, things get a bit cagey when it comes to defining what signifies a new character. According to the trademark owner, it is his position that the moment I remove the Michael Jackson wig from the character, I am at risk of committing trademark infringement, since in his own words, the wig substantially changes the character. Now, obviously, there's a petty part of me that really wants to find where this line in the sand is. You know, file a trademark for my own King Cat character, and then sell merchandise of my own legally distinct animatronic creation. But at the end of the day, I don't have the energy to make a few funny jokes at the expense of getting sued or sending hate to someone I've never even met. He, like me, is someone who's very interested in preserving the history of these animatronics, something that Chuck E. Cheese themselves is clearly not willing to do. He's taking his passion for this character he watched as a kid and he's trying to turn it into a business. And naturally, that hits close to home for me. I too grew up with these characters, and seeing Chuck E. Cheese figuratively and literally throw them to the curb is heartbreaking. Do I wish my listing hadn't been taken down? Of course. Do I think he's overstepped his ownership of this character a few times? I do. And do I think the legacy of this animatronic character should belong to the people rather than a single litigious trademark holder? One who will allegedly threaten to sue anyone who doesn't sell him their own animatronic? Yes. Now, in my conversation with the trademark owner, he claims that he has faced unending harassment and vitriol from the hardcore Chuck E. Cheese fandom. Obviously, I find that abhorrent and vehemently detest anyone who would do that. This video was never made to start drama or to be a call-out post. I just like talking about these old animatronic characters, and I just so happen to have a personal connection to this one, and I feel like it's a story worth telling. And people have been emailing me over the past couple years saying they too want to make videos about this character, but they're turning to me for advice because they're afraid their videos might be taken down and they'll have no recourse because they're a smaller YouTube channel. So I feel like it's in the public's best interest to have this information, whether it lands me in court or not. So where do we go from here when we're seemingly at a dead end? I can go the route of pushing people's buttons and causing more division and possibly getting sued. I can go the route of creating my own version of this character just to stick it to the man. Or I can just choose to remember this character and the legacy he's had. I can choose to remember all the first-hand accounts of people walking into the dimly lit pizza place and looking up upon this giant animatronic creation towering over all the arcade cabinets. I can choose to visit this character in person, see him performing in an actual museum that aims to preserve his history. And I can choose to remember what this animatronic brought to the world prior to the unnecessary rebranding. Because you can trademark all streaming audio and visual content of an animatronic character, but you can't trademark a memory. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and thanks again to Fabletics for sponsoring this video. You can check out this exclusive VIP offer by heading over to fabletics.com/Sully. And for members, I've just uploaded raw footage from my Timeline arcade trip where you can see about 10 minutes of this character performing all of his classic Pizza Time Theater era show tapes. Memberships start at just $1 a month, and they sincerely help me produce more videos for you and potentially fund the oncoming lawsuit. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, be kind to one another, stay safe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.